Welcome back to Whence Came You, a Freemasonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry. I'm your host, Brother Robert Johnson. This is episode 191. In the news this week, I just wanted to mention quickly that the Valley of Chicago Scottish Rite is having the Dyslexia Center of Metropolitan Chicago Walk coming up very quickly, May 16th. So if you're a member of the Valley of Chicago, this is your personal charity, please come on out and do a walk. It's only $20 to walk, and if you can't make it or you can't do the walk, consider a donation. We're going to have the shrine cars, clowns, food. It's going to be fun for the whole family, so please come on out. You can get more information on this at www.walkfordyslexiachicago.org. Also, I want to say many thanks to, again, everybody who is pre-ordering those lapel pins. If you don't know about them, basically we are rerunning our lapel pins that we had a while back. We have a different manufacturer now. I believe these are going to be a little bit better in quality. They are solid brass with 24 karat plated gold. There's only a little bit of gold, but it's still pretty neat. It is a poured enamel. It's a very nice pin. The clasp on the back is actually an E-clasp, so it's not the typical butterfly clasp that'll fall off if it catches on your seat belt or something like that in your car. I also need to mention that I do have copies of the amazing book, Tales from the Craft, by illustrious brother Stephen L. Harrison on the WCY store. They're $18 and ship anywhere in the continental United States, and for $25, I'll ship them anywhere in the world, on the planet. So check that out. Also, I do want to mention that I got an email this evening from the junior deacon of Alpharetta Lodge number 235 FNAM, and they have been working really hard to secure some corporate partners who will help them to sponsor their event, and now they're seeking shooters. That's right. So what this is they have something called a shootout fundraiser. So the information is as follows. It is the Alpharetta Masonic Lodge 2015 Masonic Shootout, and it's happening in Etowah Valley Sporting Clays, 619 Sporting Hill Drive in Dawsonville, Georgia. Saturday, June 6th, 2015, and the sign-in is at 8 a.m. And if you want to help them out with some sponsorship information, please contact Brother Bart Yeomans, and his number is going to be on a flyer that I'll post on our website. Now, the Masonic Shootout is a charity shootout and an event that raises money for the Masonic Home of Georgia based in Macomb, a lodge scholarship fund for local high school students in the Alpharetta area, and it supports the local troops at bases located in and around the North Georgia area. Some quick information about it is that it was built in 1904, and the Masonic Home of Georgia was built for the purpose of offering free housing and education for abandoned children. Over its 108 years of existence, it has helped over 2,100 children from around the state of Georgia find a better life for themselves. The Masonic Home of Georgia also offers full educational opportunities within the home and at public and private schools. Each child looking to advance their educational opportunities through college may also do so through grants provided through the various Masonic lodges in Georgia, raising funds for the home. The Alpharetta Masonic Lodge 235 Scholarship Fund is set up to help create opportunities for high school students needing financial aid to further their academic careers. Students will have to meet certain criteria relating to their GPA and financial status. The lodge hopes to be able to raise enough money to fund at least one semester of college for a student per year. As part of the event, the Alpharetta Masonic Lodge invites some of the most outstanding men and women in the armed forces there to Georgia to participate at no cost to them as a token of appreciation for their service to the country. The Masonic Charity Shootout will be open to the public, including both men and women, and all Masonic members from around the state of Georgia. They want to ensure that sponsors of the event receive the type of exposure they would expect from an investment in this event. So Alpharetta Masonic Lodge 235 invites your company to be a partner sponsor for the Masonic Charity Shootout. They're asking for a donation for the event, which helps disadvantaged children become productive adults. Again, 2015 Masonic Shootout, 4th Annual Masonic Charity Event. And again, I will post the PDF of this event on the website. You can check it out, and all of the information you'll need is right there, including a list of all of the sponsors, which is pretty impressive. So you're going to want to check it out if you can. Hopefully, you'll be able to sponsor them as well. All right, so for the papers this week that we are pulling from the Midnight Freemasons website, and to give you a little bit of a taste of some of the things that we're writing about over there. And stay tuned after the pieces, because we do have a treat in this episode. Brother Stephen L. Harrison is back once more with his Masonic Minute segment. But without further ado, I'd like to read for you a piece called The Skull and Crossbones in Freemasonry. You're doing it wrong. And it's a piece that I wrote with Brother Brian Shimeon, and we wrote it because of some frustrations that we had whenever we would wear the skull and crossbones symbology. We would get quite a bit of flack sometimes. So here, because of that, is this piece. The Skull and Crossbones in Freemasonry, You're Doing It Wrong, by Midnight Freemason contributors Brother Brian Shimeon and Brother Robert Johnson. In the world of Masonry, there are many symbols which represent various teachings in the fraternity. One, however, is continually employed by many, much to the chagrin of countless persons in sovereign Masonic bodies. We are, of course, referring to the skull and crossbones. In this short article, we'd like to bring to the attention of the reader and anyone else who may happen upon this article the tradition, antiquity, and importance of this great symbol, and to set the record straight for those who see it in a way that is perhaps outside the definitions and philosophical interpretations of Freemasonry. The following is my part. In my years as a Mason, one symbol stands alone as the most powerful, and not just because of its imagery. The skull and crossbones is a stark symbol. It stops you in your tracks and makes you notice it. It dares you to peruse it, to understand it. It does what it is supposed to do. It reminds you of your own mortality. Countless times I have worn a square and compasses pin, with a skull in the middle in place of the American Standard G, and when I have worn this or any other item emblazoned with the image of a skull and crossbones, or any variation thereof, I get the same response. Rob, what's with the skull? My answer is usually, it's one of the lessons of the first degree, and of the third. The brothers always seem to give me a half-cocked frown and say something like, I don't know about that. It's like a skipping record. It seems as though those who take issue with the skull and crossbones being used largely in part seem to replace the symbolism from what it is in Freemasonry to what it means in either pop culture or their religion. And to be frank, I'm a little tired of it. One of the larger areas in which brothers complain about the use of the skull and crossbones is in the chamber of reflection. These chambers of reflection are widely used in many lodges all around the world, and their effectiveness as a tool in preparing the candidate has been extremely well documented. In place of the prep room, they use a COR, or a chamber of reflection. The chamber of reflection and prep rooms are virtually the same thing, like it or not, brothers. And the only difference is that a chamber of reflection has a system of quality control, it being part of the ritual, that is. It isn't a dusty old broom closet that you let your candidate get dressed in. Take these garments and get dressed, watch out for the paint cans. Let's get real here for a moment. On the level, we have a problem with them because they may be offensive to our particular religious sensibilities, or perhaps we're afraid that it will offend someone else's. If the latter is the case, then a root cause analysis would show poor education on the part of an individual lodge, and ergo is the basis for banning the practices or having an issue with the symbol. In the cases of sovereign Masonic bodies having a posture against the use of the symbol, it only solidifies our lack of confidence in the individual lodge to educate its candidates in the true symbolism we hold so dear. Either way, it's a sad state of affairs, and yet again I will remind you that this isn't a quote-unquote devil's room or a witch's room or anything that your perhaps religious eyes might be seeing. It's a Masonic room with Masonic symbols designed to make you think. The skull's imagery is quite antique. P.D. Newman writes on the ritual of years long past where it is referenced to as the bone box, which quote-unquote holds the key or pass. It describes the skull as a box of bones or teeth in which has the pass because it is represented by the human tongue. Even the oldest quote-unquote operative Masonic lodges ever discovered in Pompeii, Italy, which dates to circa 79 CE, was found a tile relief featuring, wait for it, a skull. And you can read all about it on From Labor to Refreshment, Brother Toddy Creason's blog. Brothers, the skull and crossbones is not evil. I'm sorry that some of us feel this way. It is taught to you in the first degree and overwhelmingly in the third degree. If we've forgotten that, perhaps we need to reread the lectures. It is a symbol of your mortality. Memento mori. Remember that you have to die. Brian wrote, Lately, the subject of the square and compasses being associated with the skull has been going around Masonic circles, especially on social media. To my surprise and utter disbelief, some sovereign Masonic bodies have actually issued statements that forbid the skull to be displayed with the square and compasses. Not to seem pompous or take myself off the level, but I would have to suggest that these brothers go back and read up on some ritual, starting with the entered apprentice degree. According to some, displaying the square and compasses with the skull, quote-unquote, gives the wrong impression, because that is not, quote-unquote, who we are. One of my closest brothers had this to say, quote, not understanding the skull is like not understanding the acacia, end quote. The skull stands as a bastion in masonry, as a reminder that death is ever imminent and should incite one's reflection on their own life. The skull also relates to the rebirth, and as a reminder for spiritual awakening. The crossed bones are added to signify the pillars of the portico where man stands as he labors in the quarry. To say that the skull is a misrepresentation of masonry is akin to saying that the company Apple is quote-unquote evil because their logo happens to be an apple with a bite taken out of it. Somehow the jump from an innocuous corporate logo to Eve taking a bite from a forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden makes complete logical sense to some people. I have to say that every time I hear about some officer getting his quote-unquote jewels in a bind over the square and compasses and a skull being displayed together, I get closer and closer to having it tattooed on the back of my hands. I already have them tattooed on my arms. I would have to assume that there are more people in the world that are allergic to a bee sting than would be offended or get the wrong idea about masonry by seeing a skull with the lights. Therefore, perhaps we should remove the beehive from the ritual if we are looking not to be offensive to anyone. Another brother whom I had had several conversations with, some on this very subject, had this to say, quote, they tell you not to disagree with those who do not think well of masonry, uttering the quote-unquote pearls before swine. Then they ban skulls because someone who isn't a mason may not like it. Brothers, we cannot intend to make everyone happy. By attempting to do so, we begin to cut and destroy the very fabric that this craft was built upon. We are what we are, and our symbols are what they are, and have been for hundreds of years, if not thousands. I have no tolerance for opinionated ignorance, especially when it comes to Freemasonry. From the very onset of one's journey as the entered apprentice, we are told that what is imparted within the degrees is a scratch on the surface, and we are charged to educate ourselves further. This is yet another prime example of why we should, as a fraternity, quit wasting time and dispense with the reading of the minutes. More time and effort needs to be put into Masonic education and exploring the meanings of our symbols. Perhaps then we might not make such decisions in haste and further degrade the things that make Masonry what I have known it to be since I was 8 years old. In conclusion, Mackey's Masonic Encyclopedia has 3 entries relating to the skull. The first being the skeleton, which is simply a symbol for death used by the ancient Egyptians, which reminded them of mortality. The second being the skull, which it says the skull as a symbol is not used in Freemasonry except in Masonic Templarism, where it is a symbol of mortality. And the third mention is that of the skull and crossbones, which it defines as the following. They are a symbol of mortality and death, and are so used by heralds in funeral achievements. As the means of inciting the mind to the contemplation of the most solemn subjects, the skull and crossbones are used in the chamber of reflection in the French and Scottish rites, and in all those degrees where that chamber constitutes a part of the preliminary ceremonies of initiation. From this we can say that it is indeed a fine symbol, a universal symbol which has transcended ages, cultures, and languages. The symbol which reminds us that we can take nothing with us, that in death all men are equal. It represents that thing which is our transformation from this world to the next, the grand leveler. It is effective. Perhaps this is why some don't like it. It works so well that it reminds us of our own mortality, our equality in relation to the rest of humanity. And perhaps that hits just a little too close to home. What virtue has united, death cannot separate. And now comes the part in the show where I ask you to support the show. But we have a little bit of a different format now. What we've got going on now is I used to ask you to support the show by purchasing the apps. And what were the apps? Well, you were able to download the show and listen to them streaming, or you could download them and listen to them later on airplane mode. Maybe you're on an aircraft somewhere. And in addition to these benefits, you would also get the ability to download the papers that we read on the show right to the palm of your hand, and you could use them anywhere you had them. Maybe you needed a quick fix for education in a lodge, and you could just pull out your phone and pull up the educational paper and give it a read for the lodge. In addition to that, we had the Masonic wallpaper on every episode. Well, we've reached a point, and I'm really happy about this, that we can now offer the application for free. We've had enough people support the app over the last 3 or 4 years that the application used to be $2 one time, and now the application is going to be absolutely free. If you download the podcast source, you can search Whence Came You, and the show application is a free in-app purchase. It's not a purchase anymore, I guess you would say, but it's totally free. So you get all the episodes, you get all the papers, you get all the wallpapers totally for free. And I have to thank everybody out there for supporting the app over these last few years, and it's brought us to a point where we've all given, and now the rest of the brothers can benefit. It's free now, guys. I thank you so much for the support over the last few years. Anybody who bought the app for $2, I really can't thank you guys enough. And again, it is free. So go check it out. I know you'll like it, and have fun with it. In addition to this, if you do, some other ways to support the show is through shopping. So you can check out onit.com, freemasonryart.com, or freemasontees.com. Use the coupon code WCY at checkout for 10% off, and they send a little bit back to the show to keep the lights on. If you want, you can do a direct PayPal donation, whether you donate $1 or $2, whatever it's going to be. Those all come right directly into the show, and it helps keep all of these things available for us, and that's what's helped make this app free now. So again, huge thanks to everybody. If you're interested, we do have our lapel pin pre-sale going on right now. We're going to be shipping those somewhere around May 7th, so it's coming up close. I haven't got them yet, but as soon as I do get them, they're going out. And if you just can't wait for that, if you send $5, if you go to the website, wcypodcast.com, click on Limited Edition Shop, and check out the button pin for $5. I will send that out to you as soon as possible. I usually ship everything every Monday, so I'll build up orders over the week and ship everything first of the week. Again, huge thanks, guys. I know the portion of the show where I ask you to support it is usually a lot shorter, but I needed to drive home the fact that the app is free now, and it's all thanks to you guys. So thank you so very much. With that, we're going to go right into illustrious brother Stephen L. Harrison's Masonic Minute.
It has long been a well-known historical fact that Brother Davy Crockett was a patriot and hero who gave his life in defense of freedom at the Alamo in 1836. By the late 19th century, however, Crockett was largely a forgotten figure. The events leading to Texas independence and eventual statehood were long in the past, and very few remembered the names of the brave soldiers who helped bring it about. The situation changed when, in the mid-1950s, Brother Crockett transcended all that and became an American icon with the release of Walt Disney's television series about his life, as well as the movie Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier. Since that time, the series has been replayed to the point that every kid learns about Crockett's heroism at an early age. Interestingly, Crockett's rise to the level of superstar almost didn't happen. In 1946, famed artist Thomas Hart Benton, related to two famous Freemasons with the same name but not a Mason himself, briefly worked for Disney and came to him with an idea for a show. He presented Disney with an outline for a musical about Crockett's life called Hunter from Kentucky. To be gracious, Disney, a DeMolay, thought Benton's concept was poor, and he quickly shelved the project with the intention that it would never be used. However, in 1954, the weekly TV series known today as The Wonderful World of Disney premiered. Less than a year later, the Disneyland theme park opened, TV ratings skyrocketed, and Disney started a daily show, The Mickey Mouse Club. Producing a minimum of 6 shows per week, Disney's appetite for material became voracious. So he went back to his dead ideas file, and there he found Benton's mercifully forgotten manuscript. Disney handed the project to his staff, which reworked the idea into something that, in reality, bore little, if any, resemblance to the outline from Benton. The product Disney's talented writers came up with, arguably, might be the most popular show ever to emerge from the Disney studios. But one thing is certain. The series almost instantly catapulted Brother Davy Crockett from obscurity to rock star status. For the Whence Came You podcast, I'm Steve Harrison with the Masonic Minute.
All right, if you enjoyed that, please go to wcypodcast.com, click on the limited edition shop, and pick up a copy of Stephen L. Harrison's book, Freemasonry, Tales from the Craft. I know you'll love it. It's $18. I ship anywhere in the United States. That's a match of Amazon.com's price. And if you want to have it shipped internationally, I'll ship it international anywhere for $25. And that brings us to this week's famous Freemason. Brother Lionel Leo Hampton, born April 20th, 1908, passed away August 31st, 2002. He was an American jazz vibraphonist, pianist, percussionist, bandleader, and actor. Hampton worked with jazz musicians from Louis Armstrong, Benny Goodman, and Buddy Rich to Charlie Parker, Charles Mingus, and Quincy Jones. In 1992, he was inducted into the Alabama Jazz Hall of Fame and was awarded the National Medal of Arts in 1996. Hampton was a 33rd degree Prince Hall Freemason in New York. That's it for this week. Please find us on Facebook. Check us out on Google Plus at the email address wcypodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter @Whence Came You. Don't forget about the Masonic Roundtable airing every Tuesday night at 10/9 Central. Check out the Midnight Freemasons 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And that's it, guys. Stay on the level. For Whence Came You, I'm Robert Johnson.